Well, I think the reality is that we no longer have a choice. I think that's what we're all feeling. That's why architecture that is dealing with, kind of a more greater good, or dealing with different problems, the environment and things of that nature, is really getting a lot of attention now. Because the reality is that, the planet is in bad shape, economies are in bad shape, politics is in bad shape, everything is kind of in a crisis. And so architecture is not immune to the effects on all of those things. So I find it actually really encouraging that now there's a lot more conversation about what is it that we can do as architects to really push the ball forward and make our own contributions towards those kinds of problems. That is true. And I mean, it's difficult to get away from the economic question, right? It is a reality. It is a reality that real estate, drives everything, and people own a lot of land. I think a long time ago, maybe governments, and other organizations owned a lot of those lands, and could put forth programs that they wanted architects to really think about. I think we live in a time of scarcity. So there isn't enough space, there isn't enough, so it's kind of normal. So I think actually, rather than wishing that the economic pressures weren't there, I think for us as architects, we actually need to get creative about how to work within this new system and how to actually find ways to bring those two things together. Yes, the client, it might be a commercial project, or it might be a project that is only concerned with the bottom line, but design gives you infinite possibilities, right? So there's always opportunities to inject something additional in the project. It doesn't necessarily have to cost more money. It's about ideas, as you were saying. So maybe now is the time to actually go back to the great age of big ideas, and not necessarily utopias, but really ideas that move, push the ball forward, and really start making progress in that direction. Because, like I said, we really don't have a choice, I don't think. I think there are a lot of opportunities out there. I think for a while, maybe we were focused too much on architecture as an image. We consume, we're an image, generation. We consume so many images on social media, on TV, and all of those things. And so, having a piece of architecture that has a great Instagram moment, becomes important. And that's just the reality of the world that we live in. And so perhaps, the schools also, the way of teaching ended up following, that direction as well, where we focus a lot on the visual aspect on things maybe, which is extremely important because obviously we want something beautiful. Everybody wants beauty, but perhaps, sacrificed a little bit, issues related to context, to history, to social issues. And so I think as long as schools can reintegrate those issues, as, just in terms of habit. For example, I always thought that I was really lucky to actually go to a school where before we start working on a project, we always had to do a lot of research, in the history of the site, in, the different social issues of the site and all of those things. And that was absolutely phenomenal, and hopefully, more and more schools will be teaching architecture that way. Well, I think, again, it comes with developing a sense of responsibility, like a real sense of responsibility, not a sense as architects, not wondering what is going to attract a lot of attention. As architects, we're almost like politicians in a way where you actually have to be, and that's what I was saying yesterday, you have to take position. You have to be engaged for the simple reason that you're doing things that affect people. So that comes with a responsibility. And I think maybe taking a bigger measure of that responsibility would help so that it doesn't have to be a trend. It's just an awareness of the responsibility that we have. And the awareness of the responsibility that comes from the fact that we actually, the buildings that we design, the buildings that are built because of us every day contribute 40% of the pollution of the world, right? So those are all things that we cannot, just ignore and say or consider that it's the client's fault or whoever's fault. But I'm really hopeful, actually. I feel honestly that there's a generation right now which I'm not part of. They're younger than me. There's a generation right now who's really engaged, and I think probably because of social media, how word gets around really quickly and people take action very quickly, and then they get really passionate about the different issues, and things like that. It wasn't so easy, to disseminate information before, and so I think there's actually room for hope, and hoping that the future generation of architects is actually going to take that very seriously, because it's not as easy to ignore those things anymore. You're always aware. If something happens, at the end of the planet, everybody knows. So, in a way, I think it has embedded in the way society works now, the way technology and information travels now. It almost has an embedded measure of guilt, in a way, where you cannot just sit back and relax in your own little comfort. You don't have a choice but to hear these things and to see these things. And I think chances are that because of that, many more people actually will be taking action. I really believe that.
So, it works that way.
Maybe I'm naive, but yeah.
I think